call the meeting order. Please call the roll.
Burgess. Here. Gordon. Here. Myers. Here. Hoskin.
Here.
Washington. Here. Williams. Here.
All right. Ordinance adding sections to chapter 74, traffic and vehicles, of the village code for the village of Sauk Village, Cook counties. Trustee Morton, Mr. Fortune, you have someone here to present tonight, right? Come on, give the introductions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Village Board. I have somebody here today. His name is Bryce Baker. He is a truck enforcement officer in the village of P.L.A.N. He is also the Illinois Truck Enforcement Association. He's the president of the organization, and I've been in contact with him for quite some time, talking about the permit program and how we can bring this to the municipality, and he's been very helpful, so I've brought him before you today.
Hear me now? Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and trustees. Again, my name is Bryce Baker. I'm a police officer in the village of P.L.A.N. And just take you through a quick little introduction of myself. I've been a police officer in P.L.A.N. for 19 years, and for the last 11 years I've been assigned to truck enforcement full-time. I'm also currently serving as the executive director of the Illinois Truck Enforcement Association. We're an association of over 500 members, 400 of which are police officers from about 150 different municipalities and state police officers from around Illinois. We also represent about 110 trucking companies, several law firms, and all the state regulatory officials that oversee trucking in the state. A little bit about me. I'm a police officer in truck enforcement, but I come from a whole family full of truckers. This is a picture of my dad's dad after World War II. He drove for Standard Oil for about 30 years. And my mom's dad also drove over the road from Northwest Indiana up into Chicago for about 30 years. That's his last day as a trucker in 1977 when he retired. I quickly learned when I was started doing trucks that there's a lot of truck officers out there like myself who knew absolutely nothing about trucks. I didn't want to be that guy. So I went out and got my permit, and for every Saturday for a year I sat on a low boy. I went out there, learned how to drive, I got my Class A CDL. Learned how to throw chains, tie down binders, move permit loads. So that's me driving. So I'm not only a police officer, but I am a truck driver as well. Like I say, I love local law enforcement, I love local government, I love this industry. It's a great industry, and there's a great balance that can happen between local government and industry if enforcement is done correctly. So a question that Trustee Warren asked me to address to you guys is local truck enforcement bad for local business? Well, I can easily say, sure, it can be, but if enforcement's done right, it won't be. And here's how you do it. First of all, proper enforcement will level the playing field. The majority of trucking companies are legitimate, they want to be compliant with the law, and they want to do their job effectively and be profitable. The problem is that when they're competing against trucking companies that are cheating, that are breaking the law, and there's no enforcement to hold them accountable for those actions, the good businesses are the ones that suffer because they're trying to work, they're trying to do a good job, they're trying to pay taxes. So when the companies that are cheating are undercutting for business, who's there to enforce it to make sure? That's what you need truck enforcement officers for. It's a great educational opportunity for law enforcement. One of the greatest joys for me as a police officer in my county is I get to go out and I get to teach. I get to teach trucking companies and truck drivers how to be compliant with the law. I go out there to community policing philosophy. I get to go out to all our local businesses, and I get to talk to them about the law, help them with the routing issues, help them with load security, whatever I can do to help them be compliant with the law so that they can be profitable. There's a fantastic working relationship between myself, some of the other truck officers I work with in P.L.A.N., and also our trucking community. You all know my name, y'all got my personal cell phone number. We talk all the time, so I can help them be compliant. Compliance, when it's done right, will protect the public. I go, 98% of all truck crashes in the United States that result in fatalities and injuries are the fault of car drivers, not truck drivers. When a truck does crash in, it's the truck driver's fault. You hear it all over the news. The trucker fell asleep at the wheel. But the reality is most truck crashes involving cars is the fault of the car driver. If we do our job right and we do truck enforcement law, we are going to protect the public, and we're going to protect the infrastructure. As taxpayers, you guys have invested heavily into making sure you got planter beds, make the town look nice, the street lights, the wires going over, your town functions. You don't need trucks that are out there on the wrong roads, tearing stuff down, running over stuff. It's not good truck driving, it's not good for your community, it costs you guys a lot of money. We'll talk about permitting towards the end a little bit, but permitting was what makes the illegal legal. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. But yes, truck enforcement can be very bad for local business, but can also be very good if it's done appropriately. A little bit about the Illinois Truck Enforcement Association. If Sauk Village chooses to get involved in truck enforcement more, what we do as an association is that we train police officers. I know there's a lot of different kinds of training you can go to. Our training, we believe, is very authoritative. All of our training has been built with the trucking industry and with all the state regulatory officials. Every last bit of it we put out there. We do a 40-hour basic class, which we have one coming up in May. And we also do a 40-hour advanced truck officer class. We actually take police officers and we actually have them drive semis so they can see what it's like in the trucking industry. We also do an 8-hour certification course for police officers who've been trained by other institutions. We call it teaching the stupid out of them. They've learned bad things about doing trucks. They've learned that trucking is a source of revenue. And it is a source of revenue, but it shouldn't be a source. You shouldn't be working solely just for the money. But you can make a lot of money doing it. We're a resource both for the industry and for law enforcement. Everything we train our police officers with, we give to the trucking industry as well. We have volumes of resource documents online with standards of practice to make up for it's a very big and confusing law. And sometimes the law can be manipulated for sort gain on the trucking industry, which isn't right. We do standards of practices out there to make sure that police officers are actually following the law correctly. We have online tests they can take about different topics. We have interactive flowcharts. They can look on their phone if they need to find this driver needs a CDL event. They can punch in information on their phone. They can get the right information. We also have a discussion forum where they can ask any question and we'll get the right answers for them. We have thousands of questions and asked and answered on there to make sure police officers and the trucking industry have the right information to be successful. It's a great way of community. You're a police officer, I hit your truck. Another great joy of mine is I get to interact with truck enforcement officers all over the state. I like the guys I work with, but it's a lot. When I talk with my colleagues who do the same job I do, it's fantastic. We work together, we enforce some things together, and we build a community with the industry as well. But the big thing really is accountability. We provide accountability, whereas my police chief, he's a great guy, and he's a smart guy, but he knows absolutely nothing about trucks. And if there's a truck question, he'll come and ask me, and if I was a bad guy, I could bamboozle him all day long if I wanted to. He's like, hey, Bryce is the truck guy. And, but I don't have it. I have that ITEA. Our job is to hold police officers accountable. So we have a very specific, a very niche area of law enforcement with very confusing law. And when truckers make mistakes, it costs them a lot of money. And if that's the case, if I advise a police officer to issue tickets in the tens of thousands of dollars, someone needs to hold me accountable for my job to make sure I'm doing it right. And that's what the ITEA does. Because my chief, my bosses don't always understand those laws. So I'm held accountable by my own association that I help start. So let's talk a little bit about the state of Illinois and some problems we have here. If you guys didn't know, we have some economic issues. Broken economy of the state's broke. And as you guys know, we have a new governor, and I'm not going to play politics here, but he's a very pro-business governor. And that's a good thing. We need good business in Illinois. We need businesses to come into this state to stay here. Our economy is going to fail. But with the pro-business administration, we also find out that that side of the political scheme also wants to cut revenues from local government. We all heard about the LGBF and how they want to take 50% of local income taxes away from local government, which is going to severely cut in on the money that's available to use a local town to be able to do your job. There's unfunded mandates. And when we talk about trucks, we talk about permits. This is kind of where I want to get to that with that, is that there's an ordinance here before the council that allows for permits to be issued for oversized and overweight vehicles. The law says there's a maximum. Trucks can only be so wide and they can only be so high, so tall, so long, so heavy. And the only way they can exceed that is if they have a permit doing so. And unfortunately, a lot of towns will say, you know what, we have this business in town, we're moving oversized loads or overweight loads. And you know what, we don't want to make them buy a permit because then they're not going to like it. So just go ahead and make your move. But what you've done there, you've told the truck to do something illegal. And that sets them up for failure. They get in a crash and kill somebody. They hurt somebody, they tear down a light pole. They're going to turn around and say, well, the police department or the mayor's office or a trustee or someone official in the town said, go ahead and make that move. And they didn't have the right to tell them to do so. What a permit does is it allows you to be legal after you detected you were illegal. But the state doesn't give you a way to fund it. They don't give you a way to, you can't dedicate people to that full time just to do permits. They're not going to give you a phone line. They're not going to build a website for you for the apply for permits. We'll talk about that in a minute. But permitting is an unfunded mandate. Let's talk about the Illinois Department of Transportation. They have a permit office which issues all the permits for oversized motor vehicles on all state highways, which is like 394, which comes through your town, and I'm not sure which other state highways through here, but in 2014, they issued over 260,000 oversized overweight permits. Of that, 77% was fully automated, meaning that the truck drivers can go online on a website, apply for the permit, and get it instantaneously. That's a big deal. That's a huge piece of software they have. It costs over $3 million to build. I don't think you guys have $3 million to build software for Sauk Village. By July of this year, they're going to have over 99% of the permits will be automated, which means less than 900 permits will have to be actually approved by a human being. By the end of the year, less than 100 will be. So truck drivers who move oversized overweight permit loads are going to the state to get their permits, and it's almost fully automated for them. They get their permits instantaneously, they can pay for them, get them approved, and they can go out and make lawful moves. The problem is that when they get to a local town, they come into Sauk Village, they come into P.L.A.N. It's called the final mile. And now they need a permit to get into those streets. They can't get one, because maybe the town doesn't offer a permit. So how can they lawfully move oversized, overweight down a local street if they don't have a permit? So they usually spend a lot of time on the phone calling the police department. I don't know, so they call public works, but we don't know. They call the engineering department, and we don't know. Eventually they just get frustrated and they go. And hopefully they don't get caught by the police without a permit, because they're going to issue tickets in $1,000. Hopefully they don't get in a crash, which should cost them a lot of money. So what we need to do as local government is create a way for them to be able to get permits rapidly so that they can get them and get moving. That's good business. If we give them a way to be legal, a way to be compliant, that's how they can be successful. So if you look at what we can see on the screen there, an oversized overweight permit load. The typical thing is a typical 6-axle truck with an oversized load on it. We see these all the time. And the industry expects a rapid response when they apply for a permit. That's what they want. That's what they get from the state of Illinois. They have a great system. Actually, Illinois' IDOT permit system is heralded as one of the best in the country, which is somewhat shocking sometimes for Illinois, but it is. But that's what the industry has come to expect. They want a fast permit, they want it accurate, they want to get paid for it quickly. A local government, we don't have that dedicated manpower. It's hard for the local town to say, I'm going to take one person off their normal duties of the village, a police officer, a public works employee, an engineer, and say, you know what, your job is only to do permits. Because there's not enough of those going around, there's not enough work to do. How do you dedicate somebody to do permits? They want an online solution. Like I said, I had to pay over $3 million for that system to happen. But integrated systems are expensive. Local towns don't have the revenue to be able to pay for a system like that to get so the truckers can get permits. They expect reasonable pricing. Unfortunately, there are some towns out there that are somewhat unscrupulous with a permit fee. They're charging $700, $800 for a permit to go a quarter block down the road, which is ridiculous. So they want something that's reasonable. They don't mind paying for the permit. They want a reasonable price. That's not a constraint on us as local government. We can be reasonable in our pricing. The draft ordinance you guys have is definitely reasonable. I've looked at permit ordinances from dozens of municipalities, and what you guys have here is right in the middle. You want to be able to pay with a credit card, right? That system alone is very expensive. It's cost prohibitive to have a credit card system online. The local towns have eaten the fees. So how can they pay for a credit card that doesn't cost you guys money? So we developed a system called Oxcart Permit Systems. And what this is, it's a cost-effective solution. It's free for local government to use. It's free to set up. It's free for any future features that are coming. It costs absolutely nothing to the village of Sauk Village if they were to use it. It's all custom-made for your ordinances, your fees, your rules, your branding. It's convenient in that it's totally internet accessible. A truck driver can apply for a permit online. He has a free account with the company. He applies for it online. It sends an email directly to whoever the permit representative is from the municipality. As long as they have the internet, they can approve a permit from Europe if they were there. On their phone, on a tablet, desktop, laptop, computer. There's no software that has to be installed on village computers, which is very challenging for IT departments. And there's no invoice. Oxcart will process all credit card payments and they take those fees. So the truckers can go online, apply for a permit, instantaneously get approval quickly from the local town, get their permit back, pay for the credit card, and quick as 2 emails are answered. It's cooperative. There's no limit to user access. Multiple police officers can use it, have sign-ons to it. Other village officials can be there. It creates a one-stop shop. So every municipality or county that's using the Oxford permit system, a truck driver can log in one time and select multiple towns and get permits from all those towns, which makes it very easy for them. If you talk about over 300 municipalities in the Chicagoland area, every town has a different system for that. Some fax, some way you call it, some way you do it for email. Here's one way that you can get a permit from multiple agencies. Yeah, we have the plan is with Oxford eventually it's going to be a future integration into the IDOT system so that trucks can get their IDOT permit. We've already spoke with IDOT about it. We're working on the interface so they can get their state permit and we're able to redirect it on to get their local permit as well. So a quick view of how it works. A trucker can log into his dashboard. He can pick up at the top here, that's where you're picking the town that he wants from our system. After that, he fills out the application. The application is built to the specifications of that town. They can select routing using Google Maps, starting at any point. It gives them turn-by-turn directions. And once they're satisfied with the points that they pick, they hit submit. It sends an email to the local town. When it goes to their dashboard, they'll get an email. They can click in through that to approve or deny that permit. Here on the field, they can change anything. They can change fees, they can change weights, they can change routing, they can change sizes to make it work for it however that they want to see. That way, that's important. It's important for a local official to look at that permit. A truck driver might want to go one way, but a local police officer, someone in the village hall, might look and say, you know what, I know we got a school bus that day. There's a school there in the morning, the buses are going to be unloading, we don't want a wide load going through there at that time. Or we know that public works out there cutting the street to do a water main repair. We don't want trucks going down that road. So local officials have the ability to approve that permit so that disaster doesn't happen. They can add other jurisdiction routes, they can deny it, and they can put any other conditions they want on that permit. Once it's approved, it goes back to truck drivers, pays with his credit card online, we process that for them, and right away they get the permit. And it's all branded with the brand of the town, all the information about that town, which is required by the Motor Vehicle Code. You need disclaimers, all the permit information, routing, provisions that go with that permit. So that's the basic how Oxcart works. For all you guys at council, I'm willing to take any questions that you might have about enforcement or permitting or anything I can answer for you. See this program become a success in your town.
Any questions?
What's that? Oh, I'm sure the police officers want to drive the trucks. But, like, I drive trucks, but no, the police officers won't drive the trucks. The truck drivers will drive them in, but what we're doing is giving them a permit so they can lawfully move through your town. Oversized order. Oh. Well, the trustee wanted being the truck driver, maybe he wants to be in the police too, but I'm not sure. Sir?
You had a part out there where it was talking about they pay for a permit, and I see you're going to schedule for one trips or annual trips or quarterly. When they come into a town and they have an annual permit, do they have to like email that permit ahead of time? Like you were saying, if there's a water main break or something you don't want to go, that could be changed at any time.
Sure.
So
Different towns do that differently. In P.L.A.N, we do annual permits. And if we give an annual permit out, we're told they can move on any village street. They have a map as long as the map has restrictions on it. Like there's certainly downtown streets we don't want them going through. There's structures we don't want them to cross. Otherwise, they can move through it. There are some towns that do annual permits where they say, okay, you're going to buy one permit, pay one time, but you have to get a route approval every time you do it, which is perfectly legitimate. So it can be done either way.
but they wouldn't be charged every time.
Correct. Yeah, if you buy the annual permit, they pay one time. They multiple moves, they have to get a route approval, which is free each time.
A truck driver, there's a lot of talk about construction. He gets over, he stays on, for any reason at all, he gets off of that main route on our street. That's when this program picks up.
Right, so the state, IDOT can only issue permits for state highways. They can't issue permits for any local roads. They can't issue permits for tollway, they can't issue permits for city streets, county streets, township roads. They can only issue for their state highways. So if an oversized overweight load were to come off the state highways like 394 and turn onto a local street that's owned by the village's Sauk Village, you guys didn't have to issue the permit for that road. If they don't have a permit while they're on that road, and they're overweight or oversized, they're knocked back down to the legal size and weight, and they're fined for it.
All right. Parking lot, even though we don't own the parking lot, there's some large tractor trailers that have been staying overnight in our lot over there. Now, and we're, this program will come in effect here, or can our local guys do that?
Yeah, no, the ox cart system is only for specific for oversized vehicles that are traveling on the highways.
It's got to be moving on
It's
highways.
got to be on the highway. It's not for being in the parking lot. You get zoning regulations that can govern how that's.
And it's got to be on our road.
Correct.
Yes, I have several questions. First question, accessibility. I was reading that you would need for the village to designate a representative to issue the permit, correct?
Correct.
What happens after 5 o'clock when that particular person is gone and the person in the truck comes through? How do we go about issuing the permit?
That would be an internal issue you guys would have to solve for yourself. Like, in my town, I issue the permits with P.L.A.N. I'm very fortunate. I have a great assignment where I work Monday to Friday, and if I get a permit that comes in on my phone at 7 o'clock at night, I'll approve it. But obviously, I can't expect every town to sit there and do that. It's kind of up to the local official. But there's nothing wrong with saying that permits are only going to be approved during business hours. There's many towns that do it, and that's to say between 8, 4, 8, 5.
But if someone's coming through doing, if they come in at 5 o'clock in the evening, I mean, if they get there late or whatever, how do we go about, issuing?
Well, first they'd have to apply for it, so you wouldn't even know that unless they apply for the permit on time. But you can say application hours are between during business hours that are approved during business hours. Anytime after that, if they don't have a permit and enforcement catches them, then they don't have a permit. That's back on the truck driver. Make sure he has his permits before he makes the move.
Okay. The cost of the training that you're talking about for the police officers, what would that cost me?
Our 40-hour basic class that we do is $295. So that also includes a membership in the Illinois Truck Enforcement Association for the first year. And then it also includes portable scale certification, which is usually about a $100 class also. So that's all included in that week of training.
Now, with your ox cart system, I'm sure there's a set of costs so we can be online. What is the cost of that?
There's no cost.
So the application and the app and everything is free to exist that.
Your village will never pay a single dime for the ox cart system. It's completely, how we make our money is that we do it on the back end when we process the credit card payment. We charge a fee for the truck driver's pay.
Now, you did mention at the beginning that you are a certified officer. Who does P.L.A.N have? Do they have a dedicated officer that goes out to make sure that those permits are?
That's me.
Okay, so we would have to have the same thing, correct? It would have to be an officer?
It doesn't have to be, the law doesn't specify that it has to be an officer. There are towns where engineering departments do permits, the public works.
No, I mean as far as monitoring.
Yeah, as far as the enforcement goes, yes, a police officer has to be.
It has to be a police officer. I mean, if we would have to dedicate an officer to be there to make sure that whatever comes in 24/7 has a permit.
Yeah, so, like in my town, we have 110 police officers, we're 80,000 people.
Excuse me, I mean,
110 police officers, 80,000. So Marsh's a little bit bigger, so I'm the task, full-time, that's my job. Obviously, in a village this size, you don't have that many officers. It's 80,000 residents.
Let's take that.
Yeah. Right. So I'm just explaining this. So a town that's our size, it's wholly appropriate to say they can afford to dedicate a person like me full-time. A town this size, that's not appropriate to say we're going to take a guy solely just for truck enforcement because you don't have the manpower to do that. So typically, what smaller towns like this will do is maybe they have a traffic, they have an officer that usually works day shift that's more inclined to do traffic duty. They'll send him to truck training, so it's cross training. So he's going to go on, he's going to be on the street handling calls and doing calls for service like a normal police officer would. But in the meantime, maybe instead of running radar, he's stopping trucks. Why is that not?
because I'm sure when you came in, you saw our truck terminals that we had.
Oh, yeah.
We had several.
Yeah.
So therefore, that would be a 24-hour job because they're coming from all angles.
Right.
So, I mean, you'd have to basically dedicate a officer or different shifts, at least, especially in the evening, because if they find out that we're monitoring them in the morning and the afternoon, quite naturally, the word's going to get out that they're going to come in the evening.
There's truth to that. And I think you'll find out that if you have an officer that's dedicated, maybe not full-time to it, but is the guy who is the truck officer, he develops that rapport with the industry. that most truck drivers are starting to become compliant with the law. And yes, there's always going to be those who will move after hours because they know that's when the officers aren't working. That's part of it. I mean, you can only do so much in law enforcement. We can't get everybody. But nonetheless, I'm the full-time truck officer, but I only work 8 hours a day. So in the evening hours, there's other officers that I've trained. They learn to spot things, things that are unusual. Will call me, and I'll talk them through that. But it's my job at the end of the day to make sure that the enforcement is done. So then it's 20. You can't afford to put someone out there 24/7 for their trucks.
They find out they were monitoring, because the word will get out. And my last question, if a truck company or whatever, knowing that they're overweight, and what is the limit? In other words, will issue a permit even if they're 100,000 pounds?
Right. Well, the maximum gross weight on any street in Illinois is 80,000 pounds. You can only issue permits for what are called non-divisible loads. A driver can't load a dump trailer full of dirt to 100,000 pounds and ask for a permit. You can just as easily take some dirt off and make it legal. The permit is for a piece of precast concrete or a piece of construction equipment or roof trusses that are big. The only way to make them smaller to make them legal would destroy the load. So that's what you issue permits for, not for trucks that could be legal if they just did it less long.
No, I'm talking about the carrier trucks, the ones you cannot see what's inside.
Right.
I mean, down that 80,000 net, correct?
It's 8,000, yes. No, it's total. It's
80,000.
vehicle and load.
So this person comes in and he knows he's overweight, because we do have a scale on Route 30.
Right.
A lot of them avoid that.
Sure.
So I'm pretty sure if they know how to avoid that, they'll find out once this gets out. What I'm asking, will they issue, in other words, if a person, if you catch a person or a person comes through, quite naturally, if they're asking you for a permit, they're trying to become legal.
Yeah, if someone's asked for a permit, then they know that they're overweight,
Correct.
size.
Will that person be able to get a permit if they're 100,000 pounds?
It depends on the load. That's where you get to go back. Is the load divisible or is it non-divisible? If it's a piece of construction equipment, they can get a permit for that. If they put too much dirt in there, they can't get a permit. The police officer's job is to recognize that vehicle's overweight, to weigh it, and then say, okay, you're 20,000 pounds overweight right now. Issue that fine and tell them, well, I can't lawfully tell you to continue to move overweight. I cannot lawfully issue you a permit. So now you have to legalize your load. Now, that's an officer's discretion. I mean, obviously, I've written thousands of overweight tickets in the last 11 years. And the law says that I'm supposed to make a legalized load. And there's been very few that have earned the right to get up there with a shovel and actually empty it out. Most of them, we give them out of components.
That was my next question. I'm sure the fine is greater than the permit.
Oh, absolutely.
So, so I'm just looking at, okay, we give you a permit or do we fine you? The officer makes that decision?
Correct.
Okay.
If you get, it's up to him to find the truck. The truck is legitimately overweight to violate the law. It's his job to assess that fine. There's also discretion that if I stop the car for speeding going 30 over, I can write him for 20 or I can write him for 30. He can always lower that down if he wants to. But the permit is there for trucks that can't get down the legal size and weight, so they have a legal way to move down the road.
I'm sorry. Don't get the mic. Go ahead. Why don't you go first? Yeah, go first.
Court-wise, once the citation is issued, does it go to a county, state, or our local court?
We'd have to go to the circuit court.
To where, sir?
Sorry, to the circuit court.
Okay.
I do you guys a mark.
All the citations from the state court.
Correct. There are some other truck tickets that can be written like failure to secure a load or bad tires. Then you could do a compliance citation, which should go through your local court. But anything that's oversized, overweight, involving CDLs, those have to be documented on a uniform traffic citation and then prosecuted through the circuit court. You can either prosecute, it has to be in the circuit court as the venue. You can prosecute under your ordinance, the local prosecutor, or you have a state's attorney prosecute it. But it has to go to the circuit court. You can't bring it back here and adjudicate it through administrative adjudication.
Going back to Trustee Burgess' first question about when the village is open, how long in advance can they buy like a one-way trip in and out permit, and then how long is that good for?
Well, they have to have the permit before they move on your street. So, however soon they want, like, I'll get permits sometimes 3 or 4 days in advance, but they'll put on the application that they want, like, today's the 17th. Okay. They may apply for it today, but they'll say that they want to move on Friday, the 20th. So all the permit will be effective on the 20th and go for 5 days. It's a 5-day permit or a 10-day permit. From that day, so it'll be effective from March 20th to March 25th. So they have that discretion to be able to pick those dates.
I don't want to take any fire from you, but being a driver, our company usually will know way in advance that if we're moving a front-end loader or a piece of precast or whatever the case may be, we go ahead and contact the state, get our state permit, and then our planner and dispatcher basically, before even the move even goes out, they find out from point A to point B where they have to go. So this is not something willy-nilly just off the cuff. The guy's like, oh, I'm going down the street. Oh, I better go to Sauk Village. No, this is something that they plan way in advance when they're moving any type of oversized loads.
Correct. And most heavy haulers are going to, like the trustee said, are going to plan in advance, and they want to be compliant. It's just that when they get to the final mile, the starting mile, it's difficult to get that local permit. It's difficult to apply for it, it's difficult to pay for it. And sometimes they're like, you know what? It's just easier to roll the dice here and just go, which isn't good. We don't want those vehicles moving without supervision through our towns. We don't want an accident to happen. But we need to provide a way for them to be legal.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have this, you have the ordinance in front of you. Does anyone have any problems being on the consent agenda next week? Okay, so we'll put it on under new business. All right? Under new business. All right. Move to item number 3, village shop supply. Kevin.
All right, every year we get to decide what we're going to do with our salt. This year, last year we actually had a 2-year waiver, and the waiver expired. We get our salt through a CMS system, which is a bidding system. We've been getting it there for the last 30 years, and I'm aware of it. Normally, the pricing is good. Last year, we got a major price increase without explanation. All the municipalities in the area discussing a lot with their directors and then discussing with their trustees and their mayors. They've been trying to figure out other avenues, from anywhere from buying shiploads from other people ahead of time, waiting through this system here to see if it gets any better, finding out what laws have changed to cause the problems. We're finding out right now that some laws have changed that are causing the salt companies some problems of storage. And this is what's causing the price increase because a lot of the companies did not bid for the salt. So coming up, we have to go out this year again either for bid, or we have to try to find a company that's willing to supply us for the year, and which we would have to sign a contract for whatever amount we purchase. Through CMS, they have 2 types of bidding. They have a 100% bid, or they have a 120% bid. And when you have 120% with a 100 bid, you can purchase 80%. And if you're okay for the season, you're good under your contract. You don't have to buy the other 100% or 120. That's the only good thing I would say over going out to a private company, whereas what you wish to have, you have to purchase within whatever time they give you, whatever penalty they give you. CMS does have a penalty system if we don't take our salt by a certain time, but it's usually before the next season starts. So we have all summer to figure out how to pick it up or store it if we need to. They do charge a percentage. It's pennies per time, but it's still going to add up if we didn't get a lot of it. So what I'm here for today is, so far this year, our salt prices, I've got a little bit of a history of pricing here. I'll give you a rough idea. We paid anywhere from 2007 and 8, $37.28 a ton. Which in 2008 and 9 we had a really bad cold streak here, so we couldn't get salt up the river, so we paid $4 a ton, and we actually had to buy salt, cinder, and miscellaneous to keep the roads safe for residents. 2009 and 10 it went down to $71.74. 10 and 11 it went to $57.91. We kept the contract for 2 years. We got the extension contract. The last 2 years, we've got a $49.07 prior to this year, which we got to extend the contract. We were out of it this year. We went out to bid, and it came in at $134.21. So that's what we've been paying this year. This year, currently, with the season, we've been doing pretty good. So we won't have to buy 100% of our salt. but normally we might spend $34,000, $38,000. This year we'll probably spend around $64,000. And we have about 60 tons left to purchase. So at this point, we have to purchase the 60. I don't have to buy the other 20, so we're okay. Otherwise, it'd be sort of like $80,000. I'm hoping if we go out through the bidding process, that the process is going to come back down because this is brand new to everybody. Everybody's pretty upset about it. And there's going to be a lot of discussion. Even with CMS, they went into a secondary bidding cycle to see if the prices would come down. And they actually went up last year. So this year, we're hoping through a couple other salt companies, they've already told us that they're getting locked in buying their salt early, which they're high price already. They're right around the same price we're paying this year. I would, at this point, because of some of the heartaches of some of these companies, I'd rather roll the dice with CMS, and I believe we're going to get a lower rate. I couldn't say the maximum of what it's going to be, but it's going to be definitely lower than what we're currently paying. So I just need permission to have a signature on this and send this off unless somebody has another direction of thought.
Any questions?
You say right now current price is 101?
$134.21.
That's what you're looking at. That's what you're looking at to go out and purchase, or you want, I'm sorry, you saying you want to wait until it might go down?
Well, this is a one-year contract. We did get an extension, and we wish to sign an extension, which I think we can do better. I think CMS is going to go down in pricing because that jumped dramatically from the last price.
What would you need to know?
To get this in the bidding system, we have to have this signed and faxed off in by 5 p.m. on March 22nd.
Basically, you're asking now, Kim, in other words, to get involved in the bidding instead of going out purchasing at this price.
Yes.
Kevin, we can still use other sources other than just the actual salt. I know I've heard beet juice has been used before and sprayers and stuff like that. Is that something that our municipality is equipped to do?
No, we don't have any kind of sprayers, and beet juice is an additive to the salt.
It's an additive.
It actually takes the salt to a higher level longer in the beginning. It's supposed to help melt, but then you're adding to the cost of the equipment, the sprayers, and then the actual material, which there's a limit on that.
Okay, so when the two are mixed, does it brings up the does it stay on the street longer? I mean, does the added cost outweigh it in the long term as the salt's actually on the street? I mean, will it stay hotter? Will it stay there longer, or does it break down the additives in the salt pellet itself and dissolve it quicker?
So far from what we've learned from a couple meetings we've had with public works directors, it's better for higher road travel, the roads that are higher usage, because it works faster to remove all the snow and ice. Whereas if you put it down on our side streets and the traffic was on it and we're coming back to plow it, you're removing a lot more faster. So the cost, I'd say, would end up being more costly in the long run. If we had the ability to have the sprayers and have to buy all the equipment and you're using it as an additive, then you would definitely melt faster, definitely, and your salt would stay a little longer on the road because it's not breaking the salt out as fast. It's using the additive first.
I know in different states they use sometime like a sand or almost like ash. They've used, and I know in southern states they use ash and stuff like that. And I know that's kind of messy. Probably putting sand down would probably clog up the sewers and stuff like that as well. What is your opinion on that?
Most of those materials are for grip only. They're not for removal of snow. Illinois, you can definitely go across the border and see the difference between that. They don't use salt. The snow and the ice is a lot longer. They tend to have more issues with the traffic on there, especially in the wet snow. It tends to make like a pothole snow on the ground once it's been traveled over.
Oh yeah.
So if you don't have the salt to cut it,
Of course.
then you have a problem. The roads tend to be more completely snow-packed longer, where salt does burn out faster.
Seeing none, you want to consent? I need a contract to sign. So we'll have a contract on the consent agenda for next week. All right? Thank you. All right, item 4 is create the position of village administrator. Everyone should have the ordinance in front of them. We've gone for like the last about 3 years without a village manager. Before they had to call chief of staffs. So especially the last 2 years, we've been doing fairly well. But we're looking at this year's budget, and some time, but it was never part of the budget. So here we are, we're looking at this year's budget, looking on, coming to the board and asking for an administrator back on. As we look at this year's budget, we know there's going to be some tough things that we're going to have to do. Definitely going into everything and making a position for this administrator, someone that can be working at the village. As you see, it's pretty much like a village manager position, but be here, going out looking for grants, overseeing the department heads, like the village manager used to. Gives us someone here full time. I think that the front office, the ladies in the front office have been working extra hard lately, taking complaints from residents, dealing with residents when it comes to water bills, things like that, things that, we'll get village manager in place before. They handle those issues. Trying to get someone back into that position. I know Mohan has been putting on multiple hats, working. I think everyone has picked up more responsibility. So as you can see by this, we're trying to get some structure back in here on the administration side. And again, helping to, again, we always talk about moving the village forward. This is another step. Making sure that we've got someone representing the village throughout the day, attending, the important meetings when it comes to, through the mayor's managers, when it comes to the state of Illinois, when it comes to contacting our state representatives. Again, currently right now, I take all my vacation time from work to do that, and I don't have a problem with that, but I only have so much vacation time a year. So this allows us to get someone in this position. When someone calls, there's someone there that can answer the phone and talk. Right now, when we get a call, it goes to my voicemail. I get come back to the village hall, usually they get in here around 5:30, and I'm returning calls and I'm leaving voicemails for them. Again, it gets, I think the most important thing, especially knowing that we have a new governor, we know what's going on down in Springfield, having someone that's representing us and getting out there, going after those grants, and again, the day-to-day operations. It's the way the village was set up. And we haven't had a village manager in that position for a few years now. Now it's getting back in the way it was set up. So, any questions? Mr. Myers. Go ahead.
One, we got people still laid off. I know we've asked the department heads to cut their budget again because we're in a financial problem. I know the state is going to be keeping some of our money because it's all to us. So one of the questions is where the money's going to come from.
That's a good question. Right now we're currently looking at the budget. Again, when you look at administrator is covering all the departments, and that covers the whole entire village. So, we're looking at, what percentage that someone's, will work on it for each department, represent each department. They'll be representing the TIFs, they'll be representing the village. Again, it's pulling the money from where we have to, based off the percentage of representation for that. So again, I don't have the correct formula in front of me right now because we're still crunching the numbers. And again, right now there's no costs associated with this. What we're doing tonight is an ordinance to get these back on the books. And as you see, it's just like state statute. This is an appointment by the mayor with consent and approval of the village board. So again, looking at these positions and stuff, I mean, we as we're doing the budget, you come up with what you think that figure is going to be, and working the numbers and stuff in.
All right. I have another question. Can I keep going? Okay. It says on section 2C that the administrator will be charged in other departments of the overall. Is there other departments that stay will be in charge or a person in one, whomever it may be? So the second page, bottom of the page, C, is
Yes. Again, there's possibilities. And we looked at pulling these ordinances, pulled them from other municipalities. So, again, if there's another office or another department that it allows for that to happen. So,
Do we have any idea of the figure you're looking at?
not tonight. The important thing is first we get the ordinance on the books and then come back to the board.
Okay. I have a question. We have a proposal here, but we don't have a figure of what we're going to present this person.
But what you have is you don't have a person, you have an ordinance. So there's no person
We don't have a
connected.
range, we gotta have some kind of range on it, or
You're, right.
You can't hire somebody to a position that doesn't have an ordinance follows. So it's not a contract.
Right.
The contract would have the actual amount. This is just the creation of an ordinance for a person to fill the position.
so we will be putting them under a contract now. when we do that.
When someone presented, it could be a contract.
Ordinance takes contract.
Right.
So we won't-
Yeah, but this is just an ordinance making the position. So when we find a person for this position, that will be presented to you from the mayor with the consent approval of the village board, that person or individual would come in with a contract, which the ordinance states. I think on this one, they can work the first year, but anything after that they have to extend, and it has to be extended by contract. So again, when it comes to hiring someone, it's going to be with the consent approval of the village board, of course, we have to approve the salary. There's no salary based on this ordinance. Christine?
We have a list of job needs, specifically, and then qualifications. I know that we have, yeah, but that's just part of it. So we have an actual physical, I know that there is a list of responsibilities of the village manager, and there's also a list of qualifications of the village manager. I know that that's why the former chief of staff was called the chief of staff, because subject to qualifications for the manager.
I think we can probably put the job descriptions together. And right now, you don't have a job description in your ordinance. You know, your ordinance tells what the duties are going to
I'm
be.
asking, is there something that we can work with get before this position starts?
I'm sure it's something we can look at. Trustee Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to say I'm very happy tonight to see that this is going to be put into an ordinance. I think it's going to be very advantageous for the village and the residents for us to have somebody in this position. I know that you've been doing a lot, you know, and the trustees have been working with you in the absence of having a village manager or an administrator. And I am just very excited to know that the village is moving forward in this area. I do understand that tonight all we're doing is talking about making an ordinance. All of these other things are going to come after the fact to just get it back to be an ordinance to have a village administrator or a village manager. We're not talking about necessarily all of the things that's going to go along with it, who it's going to be, how much they're going to get paid, what the contract's going to be. We just trying to make it an ordinance to put it back on the books. And I think that is a very essential first step, moving in the right direction to get a village manager or a village administration that we so desperately need. And I am very, very happy tonight to hear this dialogue.
And again, just so everyone knows, there's not an individual tied to this ordinance. This is just an ordinance getting it back on the books so that again we can move forward. And once an individual is brought before this village board, again it's a wait, I always get these teams mixed up. It's an appointment by the mayor with consent approval of the village board. So, Trustee Bridges.
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. And first of all, I did appreciate Trustee Williams asking about the qualifications. Before you put an ordinance together, wouldn't you want to know what the qualifications are before you even make that position a reality? The reason why we got rid of the last village manager is because we didn't have the money. That was the reason why we as a board, and you were on the board then, abolished that position. I don't see what has changed since then and now, except for the governor is going to take away $500,000 out of our budget. Now, where this money is going to come from, I don't know. The department's already strapped. We're already telling them we can't pay their bills. We're having problems, and now, as you stated, we're getting ready to start a new budget. And I'm sure whoever this person may be is going to, is going to ask for at least 50 or 60 or maybe more $1,000 a year. That right now, I don't know where it's going to come from. But I too want to see, even if this ordinance is even drafted, I want to see the qualifications that this person must have. We went through this with Connecticut Quarterly, as you stated, and there was no qualifications, and you saw what happened with that. So then we went back to the village manager, and then the qualifications are spelled out, and so we had to find someone that met those qualifications. Now we're going back to what we had before, creating a position with no qualifications, and the duties there. So in other words, these duties that you're asking this person to do, some of those duties you have to know what you're doing. And not to have the qualifications spelled out in this particular person, I have a problem with that. Those are the two things. One, I don't know where the money is coming from to create this position, because the reason why we got rid of this position is because we didn't have the money. What changed in that time to now? And like I said before, we have less money because our taxes are less coming in because we have less people that own the homes. Businesses are gone. So it sounds good, but can we afford it? And if you say we can, I want to see, number one. Number two, I would like to see qualifications. I want to see something spelled out. Now, I can understand what you're saying about salary, but wouldn't you want to know, wouldn't this board want to know what type of range this person would be applying for if you're going to create this position? I mean, just to not have that spelled out, it should be spelled out between what dollar amount to what dollar amount, have a range. So those are the three things that I think are very vital to put into this ordinance before it's even thought about being brought up, or even voted on.
I think you bring up some fairly good points, but again, when you're looking at putting a position back on the record or on the books, there is no range. I mean, I'm looking at a fire chief who has a job description or a ordinance on the books. It doesn't say he makes a certain amount. Looking at a police chief who there's an ordinance on the books for a police chief that doesn't have a range on what they're going to make. I mean, I can go right down the line. We got our department head sitting on the front row. So that is part of the contracts. That's part of the negotiations when you're bringing someone in. Again, all we're doing is, all I have is before you tonight is because it's an ordinance to get it back on the books. Before anyone can be hired, it's by the consent and approval of the village board. And what we're looking at is to be able to look at this next year's budget. And again, the reason I'm asking for it to be put back on the books, so when we look at this next year's budget, we can start planning accordingly. Without an ordinance on the books, there's no planning. And that's why it's important. Now, when it comes to qualifications, I think it's something that we sit down and we look at. And I got no problems with job descriptions and qualifications. I mean, I work out in the corporate world. That's what you have. But to get it on an ordinance passed first, you have to have a position available to be able to do that. So, again, it spells out, some of the things that the administrator would do. Again, getting someone here throughout the day is important. Again, as we continue to move this forward.
I just wanted to say, you said it correctly at the beginning. The police chief, the fire chief, we know what qualifications they have. We know this person will be interacting with these people. They'll be interacting with the department heads. But you want someone to have some type of qualification? I mean, this is not on-the-job training. It sounds like it is. The way it's written, it's on-the-job training. There is no qualifications. You didn't even put education. There's nothing in here that states that this person must have anything. It tells you what the duties are of this person. I can understand that. But I have a problem even putting it back on the books this way without qualifications. Now, if you're talking about money, okay, if the board wants to vote on that part with no money involved in it, I have a problem. But I do have a problem with putting a blanket ordinance on the books that you can actually go out and get anybody without any, because there's nothing spelled out here stating what qualifications they must have. And number two, the money. I keep going back to the issue of money. I'm sure this person doing this job is not going to do it for $25,000 a year. And they're dealing with the department heads. And they're reporting back to you and the board. So those are the two things that I'm looking to see, and I don't see them on here, so I cannot understand why we can even go any further without putting something on there so we can at least identify what this person's qualifications are.
All right, thank you. Trustee Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, with all of these programs that we've been talking about, and also the cost-saving initiatives like Trustee Myers has this debt recovery program, where he talked about all of these programs where they could possibly go out and get money for people that owe Sauk Village hundreds and thousands of dollars. At one point, we was talking about just having somebody who would come in and be the administrator part-time. It doesn't say creating a position for a village manager. It says a village administrator. Now, if we're hiring a village manager, I would assume that this is somebody we're looking for with a bachelor's degree in business administration that knows how to do all of those things that a business manager is supposed to do. A village administrator can be somebody with a business, with an education in business, or it could be a person with years of experience. It could be whatever you critique the job description to be. So we was trying to get somebody to just even come in to help with the day-to-day operations, because the village clerk and Mohan and the ladies up and everybody is so overwhelmed. We was looking to even go get an intern. So now with all of this emphasis is being put on what all the person have to have and what all they need, it depends on what we can afford and what we're hiring at this time. If this was going to be somebody that's doing an internship, or somebody that's coming from like South Suburban Mayors Management had suggested to us, there are a lot of village managers that are retired. They can only work 120 hours, 120 days a year. They would have just come back someplace and work just to stay sharp, and they would charge you a lot of money. We haven't even said what exactly it's going to be, whether it's going to be a village manager or a village administrator. But I would definitely want it to be put back on the books, because we can't be talking about something all the way down the road. It's not even on the books for us to discuss that part of it yet. And I know that we need somebody to help with the operations of the village and to run this village and all the things that happen. Not just with reporting to the mayor and to the trustees and to help with the different departments to be accountable. People get shot, people get killed. We hear about it 3 or 4 days later on Facebook. I mean, we need somebody to get in here that can help see and watch and make decisions and get in contact with the mayor, the trustees, and do whatever needs to be done. I don't care if it's somebody part-time, somebody retired, but to not even want to have the help. The criteria is important, but it depends on what we actually hire somebody to do. Are we looking for a business manager with 20 years of experience to be able to pay all these $200,000 salaries for? Or is this a village administrator? I'm an administrator on my job. I've been there 26 years for the Board of Ed. So it just depends on what we're looking for. And I think that in my own personal one vote and opinion, I am glad, again, to reiterate, I'm glad to see that we're moving forward, because we need some assistance in the operations of the village. I don't know if all that has to go with the ordinance first, like the mayor said, instead of there about the police chief, then the ordinance, or about the fire chief, what their salary is going to be, and all their total job descriptions. So we just...
One answer for you. We did that. We tried that years ago, back in 2009. I'm just going to throw one name out there to you, Burnett Hill Corder. She was the village chief of staff because she didn't meet the criteria and credentials. That's why she didn't last, because she didn't fit the job description. And that's what happened. That's why we got sued, because they did not know what to do. We did that. We tried that. Then we had to go, and we went back to the village manager at that time. After that, we went back to the village manager because we didn't hire a village chief of staff. So, I mean, you get what you pay for, and that costs us some money because of that particular position costs the village money.
What I'm saying is, I've heard that the village, at that particular instance, is also the person that was in charge, but I have known all what they were supposed to know too, being the mayor. So if we have two people that don't know what they're doing, you know, the blind lead the blind. We have a mayor and trustees up here that I feel know what they're doing, and they can give the village manager or administrator good direction.
I'm not looking to hire somebody that we need to train.
I think, first of all, again, you have an ordinance before you tonight to get it back on the books. When it comes to negotiating salaries and, the qualifications, I'm sure you're going to see resumes, things like that. Again, just like anything, just like any other department head, it's with the mayor will present someone, and you're the voting board. So, I think all the department heads are pretty much the same. And this is, again, a position, but again, first of all, you have to get it back on the books. And then for me to even be able to present someone to this board. And to kind of give you a little example, I have been reaching out to mayors, especially looking at the budget. And, when I talk to these mayors, they're like, so how much does your village manager make? And I tell them, I said, we don't have a village manager. They're like, please run your day-to-day operations. I said, well, it's pretty much the measure. And I do got some good people who, department heads are running their department heads if they have something to contact me. But we don't have a village manager. Every mayor I talk to says the same exact thing. Number one, how are you doing it? And number two, you're missing some great opportunities. Because a village manager, and this is an administrative position, is the one that's out there all day long. And they're the ones that's going after the grants. They're the ones that's dealing with the people. I mean, I can't tell you how many times someone comes through the front window, they want to see the village manager or administrator. They want to talk to the girls in the front window, do they? You want to talk to the mayor or a supervisor, administrator. And again, I come back at night and I've got notes after notes after notes sometimes. And I'm sitting here making phone calls, calling people at night. Sometimes 7, 8 o'clock at night, return phone calls. Where a resident, they come to the window, they want something resolved right then and there. So again, this individual is, it's important for us, number one, to get it on the books first. And then we have to find someone that can visit the board. So, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the last thing I want to say. Week after week, you ask us for cost-saving initiatives. And for the most part, we don't have it. This would be something that the village administrator or village manager would be able to do during the daytime, during the day hours, to call businesses, to call and, like you said, go out for grants and different things that we need like that. Week after week, every single time we have a committee of the whole meeting, we have cost-saving initiatives. And I have opened it up to the entire village. I talk to people all the time. I don't know that many residents that come and offer cost-saving initiatives either. So to me, it's just a win-win situation to have someone that's available during the working hours of the day that can make those phone calls, because that's how we can also get money generated in for the village.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one last question. Why didn't we do this 2 years ago? What was the reason why? Because we've been without a village administrator, manager, chief of staff for quite a while. Why did we do this in 2013?
No, you very great point out. And 2012, when I came in here as acting mayor, we were close to $20 million in deficit. We all kind of tightened our belts a little bit. We all picked up a little bit extra work. The girls in the front office are doing 2 or 3 jobs. Mohan's doing 2 or 3 jobs. You can go right down the line how everyone's doing extra work to make up for that position. But again, there's more stuff that can be done now. By filling this position, it can take a little bit away from the girls in the front office, and they can do a little bit more what they need to be doing. Mohan can focus more on things that he really needs to be focusing on, instead of, during the day while he should be working, he's dealing with residents, things like that. I mean, that's what your administrator is going to do. So, 2 years ago, we looked at tightening our belts, and we did. And if you the audits prove it. We've shaved, what, over $4 million off our deficit in the last
So
year.
you're saying now we can afford it? Because you said 2 years ago we couldn't afford this.
Right, but again, what I'm saying is there's other things that we're looking at inside this budget. So, again, to have the position on the books first, so when we figure out, what we're going to spend, how we're going to spend, what we're going to do, again, again, when you're filling out the budget, you're doing the budget. If the positions are not on the books, you do the budgets a little different. If the positions are on the books, you're looking at the budget different.
But you still haven't answered the question. The question was, what's changed? Do we have, are we able to afford this position? Even regardless of what it's about, from 2 years ago to now, you're saying now that we can afford this position. Because 2 years ago, you said we couldn't afford this position, and you were correct. We couldn't afford it. That's the reason why we abolished it back when we abolished the position. So I'm asking now, what's changed? And I don't see the numbers, but you say that they're there, that we can afford this position, and that's what I'm asking. So I'm asking you, you're stating that we can't afford this position now in order to put this, even if we put it on whatever. You're saying that we can afford it.
I'm saying, number one, it has to be on the books. And number two, for us to even go out and see if we can fill this position. So,
Can we afford it there? Can we afford it?
I think we can afford it. Again, it all comes part of negotiations, that's what we have to say. I mean, if someone came in here and said, I want $200,000 a year, I would have to say, no, we can't afford it. But again, so you're asking a hypothetical situation.
No, I'm not asking, I'm asking a direct question. 2 years ago, we knew, and was asked by you, by trustees, why don't we have that position? And you stated then that reason why we can't, you do want a village administrator, you said that before, but we can't afford one. I'm asking what has changed since that time to now to say now we can afford a village administrator.
I can tell you by talking to other mayors, they say your village administrator pays for itself. Your village administrators, you went out there getting your grants, your village administrators out there that's making recommendations to the board.
But, okay, the reason why I'm saying this, Mayor, is because I asked, I don't know how many different times for us to add more people into a position that will bring money to this village, that will go out there and write citations, that we can get money, that will go out there and make sure that this village looks halfway decent. We have one code enforcer, one person to take care of the businesses, the industrial part, and then also the residential. We have one person writing tickets and going around to those different places. That generates money. Those fines bring money in. And I've been asking to increase that person to at least one person, one more person for seasonal time that would work from the spring to the fall. And that's the time that we can get out there and that person's job will pay for itself. That's why I'm asking right now, you're saying that this is going to save money. It may save money, but it's not going to generate because they can't charge anything. So I'm saying if we're going to add something to something, I would rather see us bring dollars in at the very beginning. This would be a work in progress as a village manager, as you already know. And that's why I was asking, because I didn't see anything change in the last 2 years that stated that we can now bring this particular position back. And we looked at the budget before, and that's why we have department heads crying back and forth saying there's no money. Now we're saying all of a sudden now we have money, and I'm just wondering where did it come from, and that's my only question. So I really, until I can see that we can actually afford, because I can't see the numbers that we can actually afford another person that's not bringing anything. They're bringing their expertise. They're going to bring. We all know grant money is a crapshoot. We already found out what can happen with grant money. But I'm looking at something that right now, if I bring a person on into the village, they can actually bring money in. And right now, with just this blanket, just say, okay, we put this in, and that gives you the right to go out and hire, with the consent of the board, it gives you the right to go out and hire a person and bring it back, and then, that's what this does. Without the qualification, I mean, we can go back and forth, but there's nothing in writing stating that. So those are the two things, qualifications and money, and I don't see either one in this particular order.
You bring your great point up,
Fire chief. Are there qualifications to your job? Yes or no? Police chief. Qualifications to your job? Yes or no? Department of Public Works director. Are there qualifications for your job? As the coordinator, Art Johnson, are there qualifications for your job? I want qualifications for this job. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And I haven't said that we're going to get it. What I'm saying is, you know, the qualifications come out when you start looking for someone. So, and you can't put out, you know, say that you're going to hire someone without number one being on the books. When you go off and you put out that you're hiring someone, that's when you put out, here's the qualifications you must have to be able to go hire. This is getting an ordinance on our books so we can take that next step. And then that next step is having those qualifications, bringing someone for the village board. There's negotiations on cost. Again, so I've got written down a qualification. I've got no problem putting qualifications together, but again, that's the next step. First of all, you have to have an ordinance on your books that says that you can at least go out and start hiring someone.
Absolutely, and I understand, and it's a great idea. We're looking at this. It's an excellent thing. We're looking at it, but when you bring somebody in for a job, you have to have qualifications. And with the past chief of staff, that individual didn't have those qualifications. It wasn't laid out in the draft ordinance here. And now that's all I'm asking is just we should have the basic qualifications for this individual's, for this job. And it shouldn't be that hard because other municipalities probably have it as well. But I like what I see, but on the same token, I would like qualifications put in here, like qualifications, duties, I get it. But I just want to see qualifications.
It's a very good plan. Everyone wants to bring up the former chief of staff, you know, go back two ways ago. She was voted by the board. So, voted by the board, chief of staff.
She was voted by the majority.
By the majority. So, yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Use the mic, please.
You keep bringing up a couple of years ago that was very, what happened 4 weeks ago when the mayor and cut all the departments, budget cut out there, but budget in. Now, it's just additional to what you cut. You said you want to take it from every department. So it's been shorter than, 2 years? I mean, we've been hurt pretty bad.
That's why I made the statement. I made the statement that I don't see the numbers. I mean, not for creating a new position. I don't see the numbers. You can continue to keep pulling from each department. Yes, you can. Years ago, we were trying to pull from each department so we can get somebody to ask them so they could go out and buy a truck. And that never came. But I mean, we can continue. Yes, numbers are numbers. But right now, the departments are struggling. Right now, the department heads are coming to the meetings that they need the bills paid. Now we're creating another position here. And it was stated 2 years ago that we cannot afford this. If we see the numbers that we can afford this, by all means, yes. But then we have to look at priorities. Like I said, our priority right now is to go out and bring money back. A code enforcement person would do that. A code enforcement person would get out there on the street because we only have one person writing 100 tickets a week or more. And and they miss a lot. That one person, all you get to school, they miss a lot. They can't get up and down. Even one of these trustees knows you cannot walk these streets and cover this in 1 week. It takes you longer than that. So I'm looking at something that can actually make a difference right now. And a public administrator, I mean, okay, but I'm not going to hire someone and there's no qualifications. There's nothing that's stated. Even with Renetta Hill Portland, we asked for something. Even though I wasn't for that, but because they changed the qualification, they changed the job description because the qualifications she didn't meet. But there's two things I keep saying. I don't see the money, and I don't see a qualification, and I think it should be spelled out in the ordinance. Everything else is spelled. If the duties can be spelled out in the ordinance, so can the qualification.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, let's move on. I think we beat up that horse enough for us. All right, let's go ahead and move to item number 5, an ordinance creating a position for Director of Public Safety. You have before you another ordinance. What's that? Yeah, I'm sure it's not going to go on the consent agenda, but I'm still going to ask the board to approve it. So, be on new business. And if any trustees want to talk to me, if you have any questions, if you can write stuff down, come back and look. Yeah, I'll work on it. I think, again, when you look at your qualifications, if you go back for a second, your qualifications, your salaries, you know, all that kind of stuff, that's all part of the negotiations. And I think the board, I hear the board and I understand the board and I agree with the board. You need to have qualifications. I think what you do, though, is when it comes time to look for that individual, present that individual, and when you're going to look at the qualifications, and you may say, okay, you either have them or they don't, or are looking for something else. And so, again, tonight you have an ordinance to get it on the books so that we can move forward to the next step. Again, there's no person tied to this. There's no salary tied to this. It's a position on the books so we can take those next steps. That's what's important about
I
us.
think I agree. That's why I told Ed that salary is part of our contract negotiations. The difference is that we know that we're going out for a police chief or village manager. We know that there is past precedent. We know that there is what a police chief needs to have. We know that there's a qualification. I haven't reviewed the ordinances for those in quite some time, so I don't know if there are qualifications are actually in the ordinance or not. But with salary, I agree with you 110%. That's all over the negotiation process. Qualifications, in my opinion, is something that should be. We've got to listen to people with a kind of a roundabout list. I think a roundabout qualification BA or MA of this administration, whatever it's going to be. That was my concern from the beginning. I know you speak this, of course, before you know whatever, but what I'm saying is that it might go a little bit easier if there was a basic rough draft of qualifications.
We got it
Ordinance.
written down. All right, next one is the Director of Public Safety. We got an ordinance for you, again, another position to add to the books. Looking at this, I talked to, again, and a lot of these things aren't just stuff that I pull out of my head. This is talking to mayors and other communities. Again, this is looking ahead, being proactive on some of this stuff. Again, this is just now putting a position on the books for a Director of Public Safety. And as you can see, there's a list of things that they're doing, oversee on policies. Again, for the police department, fire department, oversee, instruct, make sure we've got our training. And again, it could be part of overseeing, instructing, and training members, informing the board here of operations. And there's a whole entire list when you look at it. Responsible for seeking and obtaining grants, again, going out and seeing what we can get. Again, another resource. Investigate the affairs of the police department and fire department, investigate all complaints, relations to matters under the jurisdiction. Again, we've seen what had happened in the news, especially lately down in Missouri. This is an important position I want to get on the books, but number two, we think very seriously about. We hear a lot of things that happen on the news, you see things that happen in our communities. This is a position that a lot of the communities have already started to put on their books. And again, this helps us as a board. It gives us another independent person to do investigations. I think you saw we've had new investigations, and we've had to have court appear for a village employee. This right here is part for the police and fire, doing investigations and things like that. We've paid a lot of money to our attorneys on the last one, so again, you've got the list of things there, the list goes on and on. Again, I don't make these up, these are regular ordinances that come from other communities that already have these in place. So, anyone have any questions? Trustee Myers?
All right, I have a couple of questions. First of all, the first one on the second page, again, I like to start on the second page. I can only answer for the fire department. I've never been on the fire department, and I have no idea about the police or residents and so forth. But speaking of that, you only named 2 departments out of the other. I mean, nothing against you, Kevin, but you guys don't have accidents, and Artie, you guys don't, somebody told us some of them don't have accidents. I mean, you don't mention, or this director is going to be taking out all 4 money for this one. Or where's this going to come from? Or is there any money at all?
This is number one, getting it on the books.
Yep.
Okay, again, just like other ordinance.
Okay, so
But number
it's
2,
not-
again, it's something that it's, number one, this is not on the books already. It's again coming back and looking at, and when you look at the director of public safety, it's over the police and fire department. If you think about it, we're getting the majority of our complaints. Your complaints come in through the police and fire department perhaps. This is an individual that would oversee those complaints, things like that. So when you talk about public safety, police and fire.
All right, let me go through just a couple things and then do that. All right, it says that oversee the instruction to train the members. You know, we spend hard cash, a lot of time to send our guys out to become certified trained instructors to train our fire. The state of Illinois Fire Marshal Office mandates that. Now, whoever you bring in, I hope that that's one of the things to look at. If he's going to decide to come over and train us, I hope he's certified.
But just real quick with one of the words you said, and train, it's or train. So I mean, it throws it out there. They can oversee, instruct, or train the members of the fire department.
Or it's a mighty big word.
Right.
Either way. I've been there, done that, yes, sir. All right, another thing is, we work towards the certification of these firefighters. Is this guy that they're looking at, is it going to be the same person, is it going to be a different person? Well, I kind of expect at least to be advanced certified 3 firefighter, fire officer 2, hazmat officer, P.L.A.N. Every one of our officers carries that. I mean, someone in this position here, the entire board really has to look at, and we have to have this person here off paper. I mean, on paper. It's got to be. And I mean, and the even one actually said that there's a lot of stuff that should be here that's not here. And I know the attorneys wrote this up there, right? Yeah. My next question, I know I already know the answer to it, but I'd like to hear it from you. Is my work review committee going to get a chance to look at any of these?
These are positions, they're not enforceable ordinances. This is with the board, so it's coming before the village board. So there's no real reason for it to go before the ordinance review committee. Again, it's before the village board. But again, you bring up some good points. Again, qualifications, you talk about things like that. But again, this is a ordinance to get it on the books. I mean, there's no one that's being presented tonight with this. So what you have is you have an ordinance, and you've been doing this for a long time. An ordinance could be a work in progress. But again, when we look at getting something on the books, something that we can start to go out there, you can't really go off and start investigating, or you can't really go out there and say we're looking for someone if you don't have anything on the books. And just like the other position, this position is an appointment, with consent approved with the village board. I think, working with the village board, that's what you have to do. But again, there's a lot of good points that brought up here tonight, so I'm taking notes. Trustee Lennon.
Let's just all And you don't do that before you're on there. Because I think a lot of the conversation we just had is going to be, where's the money, what's the salary qualification, that kind of thing. On the second page of the ordinance, looking at DG, I'm looking at I. Qualifications, here's my question. How do they conceive of either department, or chief of the department, upon the approval of the board, and I understand that. We're saying that this person will be able to kind of step in and take her position?
Yes.
Okay, here's my question. Further down, the second to the last sentence, all members of this department shall be board like to the director of public safety. Fire department, including that, it doesn't say fire department.
Where are you at again?
Second to the last sentence,
Okay.
all of the members of this department shall be board like to the director. Fire department should be like that too.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's my question. I mean, basic qualifications.
Right, because it says police and fire off in that whole entire paragraph.
So
But
that's,
it's missing.
it doesn't say fire department there. I wanted to make sure. And then, I see that the compensation would be determined by the board of trustees and the village president. In addition to what they would already have. So let's say that this person was making X amount as a public safety, person, and then if they have a ability to be able to do sort of stipend. That was
Where are you at?
the last sentence of I. Additional compensation shall be determined by the president of the board of trustees.
The board has to approve it.
Right, and that's what just suggests that they would get X amount for their salary for that position. Should they fill a vacancy, we make them second.
Only the board approved it.
Full, right,
And you bring a good point about compensation, because it's in both ordinances. I knew it was there, I just couldn't remember what that was.
Again, without starting the qualification situation that I called last. I do think that it would be necessary to have the same thing, kind of have an overview, for the same reason. You know, this we're dealing with a very long, millions of dollars budget. They have to know, you know, managerial skills, how many people are going to supervise, yada, 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 for the village administration. Grant writing, things like that. This, we're dealing with state statutes, we're dealing with certifications, and it's kind of difficult to kind of see somebody if you don't know anything about that. So last time we had a chief of staff, before that, she was chief of staff, she was reporting substitute teachers. And then it was like, well, you can tell a person that substitute teachers are full, and then you're making conversations right now, or where it's come from, because we have a new budget that's coming up, so we don't know, and we don't know what the salary is on this person. I mean, I have reservations. I'd like to know about the qualifications, basically, and I'd also like to see the new budget. I know that we're going to be having budget talks soon, so I'm not going to try to open up that door talks either. But I think that my biggest thing right now, because this is just the ordinance thing, we're not looking at a contract, we're not looking at a person. My biggest thing I'm thinking right now is qualifications. And I think that I would need to see that before I can do that.
And qualifications, in the police ordinances from other communities, I'm sure they got qualifications. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, and I'm not going to make qualifications. I'm going to contact these communities and say, can you please provide the
Because I'm pretty sure
qualifications?
that's what we do that.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we allow our ordinances, we look and see what does this person do, what works for us. You know, nobody does what we do. I know that I do not know what that is.
Thank you, Board, Mayor. I have a question here. It says Director of Public Safety, so it's a Public Safety Director. I know other municipalities have had almost like two chiefs. And one is an administrative chief and one is an actual working chief that has certain qualifications. Well, I mean, this individual, I seen what Rosie was talking about in the model, but is this an administrative role, or would this individual have the qualifications to, be a working chief as qualifications as a chief and stuff like that. And also on the same token, the fire department. Again, is this an administrative chief that handles the desk, the paperwork aspect, or is this individual going to be able to have the qualifications to go out there and handle fire calls or handle the scene? Is he certified when it comes to those things? Those are questions that I would really want to know about. And like I said, Rosie said, I don't want to be a dead horse about the qualifications. I really believe that has to be there. Also, I do not see the emergency services nor the Department of Public Works. My question is, why would they not follow that?
Yeah, let's go back to that one first. Again, this is emergency services, so your police and fire, number one. Number two, I look at this being more probably administrative. I don't see this person going out and fighting fires and shooting people or arresting people and pulling them over. I mean, I don't see, we've got chiefs already in those positions. This is an administrative role that goes out and they help these, you're going to be working with police department and fire department, both chiefs, to go out and look for those grants, to go out and get the funds that are needed, to help them provide the training, and going out there trying to find the resources and again, either providing the training or finding the resources for the training. This individual is to work with them. At the same time, give you an individual, the police chief gets complaints. Right now he handles those complaints. This individual would handle those complaints to the police chief. Do the investigations, things like that. If the fire chief gets a complaint, the complaint would they go to the next person. I guess I look at it more, in the corporate world we have human resources, right? But they have more, when it comes to safety, it's a little bit different there. When it comes to records and when it comes to people's names and things like that, you need to have an individual, number one, that has the expertise, that has the background. Again, I look in this one here, I would say this one here would have more background and more experience probably than any other, because you're looking at the police and fire department. Those are special expertise that, that only they know more than anything. Your paramedics are kind of the same. And again, I'm not saying anything about the other department heads, but this is for safety. Again, talking to the other mayors, working, through stuff with our mayors and managers, working through our state. We don't want the same things happening in Illinois or even in Sauk that we saw happen in Missouri. This is making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, making sure that we have the right things in place. This individual, if you look through the recommendations here, are looking at making recommendations, coming back before the board, again, working with the chiefs. Again, probably someone with an outside eye coming in and looking. And again, a lot of things that are in this, go back and read your report from R.E.N. When R.E.N. came in place, especially on the police department side, they said you need to make sure you have this, you need to make sure you have that. As a board, you should start working on this. This right here puts a position in place where we can start, if we can fill a position, and then everyone was talking about the money. Again, this is something that we go off and we see what it's going to cost. But without it even being on the books, there's no way to even try to think about budgeting for something like this. So, again, talking to mayors and talking to other administrators and village managers, this is recommendations, and again, I listen to them. That's why we're part of the Southborough Mayors and Managers. That's why we're part of the Office of Mayors. That's why we attend training with those other mayors, and we attend meetings to find out what are other communities doing. Are you doing something? Maybe you're doing something wrong, or maybe you're not doing something as much as you could. You take those recommendations. Again, we can't do everything. We're a small community. There's other communities that are larger than ours. But just like tonight, we brought truck enforcement to the table. I mean, after how many months have you been working on that? And Trustee Myers been working on it for months and months and months. We're looking at potentially voting on approving next week, hopefully, so that we do something. Again, this here is getting something on the book And if we can't afford it this year, we can't afford it. But you know what? You look at it as being a short-term or a long-term goal. If you have the positions, you know that you've got the positions available. And as we continue to move this village forward, we go back and say, you know what, we do have it on the books. And we do have a qualified individual that we can hire that will make Sauk Village a better place to live and a better place to want to bring your families to. So, especially right now.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, again, first of all, you mentioned Ferguson. I'm hoping that, you know, that's not even an issue here. But I do have a few questions. The first question, when was the last time you had a department head meeting with all the department heads?
It's been a while.
Okay.
I talked to many departments.
No, I'm just saying a meeting where they can all interact. They can all come out with you and tell you what their problem is, you can hear their concerns. You know what the department head meeting. So,
Well, anyways, we have department heads. Department head meetings, departments have a scheduled meeting every month where they can meet.
no, with you.
I'm sure not. So they have a time that they're supposed to meet. In fact, you know, one of the first things I did was I put it on their calendars so that they would know, and we gave them room to meet so they could talk among themselves. But I've got no problem reaching out to the department heads. I talked to them. I talked to Kevin a couple times already this week. I talked to Al just last night. I talked to Sherry just about every night. She's walking out. As I'm walking in, she stays and gives me updates. I talked to Art last night. So again, talking to the department heads, there's that communication. And they, number one, they've got my cell phone number. They've got my email address. They've got my text. They know how to get a hold of me. So whenever there's something that we need to discuss, they have a way to get hold of me. In fact, they have multiple ways to get hold of me.
That's a question I asked them later.
No, and you bring up a good point. That, you know, again, that's why the village administrator is so important. Because a village administrator will be working the same time that they're working. I, as a part-time mayor, work a full-time job. So, I mean, I could call all the department heads back in at night and say, okay, we're going to meet, you know, maybe every Wednesday night. I want you all back here at 7 o'clock to meet. But I don't do that. What I do is I make myself available so when they need something, they can get a hold of me. And I can make it where if they want to talk to me, I talk to them if they want to talk. So, you know, again, asking them to come in on overtime or...
It's not overtime for them. The department heads don't have overtime, they're salary.
Okay.
So there's no overtime. But my question
So if that's what the trustee wants, I will start scheduling meetings at night with the department heads.
that's, okay, but
Is that
ever
what you want?
since I've been a trustee here, I've heard every single mayor state that I'm a part-time mayor and I have a full-time job. But when you're out there, they say I can do this and that. And I don't need to, you know, even though I'm going to devote my time. But when it happens, that was my first question. My second question, don't they have safety meetings? There's safety meetings, I know, at least once a month that they have safety meetings, that they meet with this company that we brought in here for them to go over certain things. This ordinance here, Mayor, supersedes, and it seems to me that it's, if you read this, you're looking at either our, well, right now it only has police and fire, that this person would oversee the fire and police. I thought the only person that could oversee the fire and police would be yourself and this board. Now they got to go through this person, and then this person would come to you. So therefore, why do we need a police chief or a fire chief if we have a public safety officer? Because now there's redundancy. Now you have someone that's going to watch, see what they're doing, and then they're going to report back to you rather than that being your job to watch and see what they're doing. And you don't have to report to you. You come in there and then you bring them in and ask them what's going on. And if they're not proficient in what they're doing, then you bring it to them and say, okay, I think you're not being able to do this. But to create this position basically tells the police chief and the fire chief, if you mess up, you're gone. Because they said, we all know that the police, fire, and all of the other department heads are at-will employees. You don't have to have a reason for them to go. They know that when they got hired, that they're there at the will and pleasure of the mayor. So if they feel that they're not doing their job, you can, and it has been done, get rid of that person and get another one, especially if they don't have a contract. But if they have a contract, and that contract is up, you get rid of that person. What this ordinance states, and it's clearly stated in here, that in absence of those particular departments, that person would resume those duties of that department head. So basically, you got a person, I mean, we all have jobs. You're going to have a double overseer. You're the first overseer because you're the mayor, you're the chief executive officer. Now you're going to have a buffer, a public safety officer, and then you want a village administrator. So now they got to go through 3 different people before we create 3 layers of basically accountability before it gets to you. You got a village administrator, a public safety officer, then the mayor. I don't know how everyone else feels, but you're trying to operate a champagne budget on a beer budget. We don't have that. We don't have that kind of money to do that because, again, where is this money coming from to create this position? You have people in place. If you feel that they're not doing their job, that's your job to get and call them in and talk to them. You bring them in, say, hey, I don't think you're doing this or whatever. These are, they're getting paid. That's their job. But to put a person in place, I don't know. Every job I've had, that creates dissension. Because now you don't trust me or you don't believe I can do my job, so I got to have somebody else to watch me. Come to me, talk to me, and tell me I'm not doing whatever you're not satisfied with. That's your job to bring that person that you feel is your department head, bring them in and say, hey. But when you do that, now they're walking on the eggshells, which everyone should be accountable. That's what the board is here to hold you accountable. Everyone should be accountable, but that person should be you, not a public safety director.
That's right.
Go ahead, Trustee. Go ahead.
What's that? I can't hear you back here.
Go ahead, repeat that, please.
Are you planning to get rid of our police chief department tonight?
No, I'm not. And in fact, I know there's been word on the streets, and I know they've already been threatened that they're going to lose their jobs. I sent a message out to every single one of the department heads last night. The ones that called me back, I assured them that it's one of those election year propaganda that people use to try to threaten the department heads. It happens every single election year, every 2 years. So I know exactly what they're going through. I mean, I had one department head when I was elected mayor. When I walked in his office, he asked me, how long do I have to clean my desk out? I asked him where he was going. He said, well, so if you're elected, I was going to be fired. I said, well, I'm not firing you. So that desk is yours as long as you want it. So, every 2 years, these department heads know exactly they have to face the same thing. And you know what? It's probably one of the worst positions with being in a municipality, being a department head. Because every election, you've got people running against you, and you've got people there using their position to try to get your vote, get your supporters, and use scare tactics. It happens every 2 years. And these guys on that front row have been doing their position for over 20 years, and they probably can tell you, a handful of years, maybe it didn't happen, but every 2 years they go home, especially around election time, wondering if they're going to have a job come May, the second meeting in May. So, I'm not looking to fire. Again, these positions are to move something forward. These positions are to get them on our books, number one. Number two, these positions will not be filled without the consent and approval of the village board. And again, when you start to figure out, as we're looking at the budget, this is the time of year that you put these positions on your books or at the budgets. It's planning your budget accordingly. And again, if we brought this on 6 months from now, it would have to wait another 6 months until the next budget year. So it's coming out and putting something out there before the board, getting something on the books, so that number one, we can go out there and start to research and find out what's the position like this going to cost. Again, you have some qualifications on. I'll reach out to some of these communities and get what their qualifications are, and get it for the board. But again, your qualifications, your salaries, all that stuff is part of your contract when you fill the contract. And it spells it right out in these ordinances. If you look under compensation, it talks about the contracts, it talks about the compensation.
Mayor, I just have one last question. What village has a public safety officer and a department head? In other words, you said you talked to the villages. what village do you know has a, say for instance, a fire chief and also a public safety officer? No, you said you talked to them, right? But I don't know any out there, and I know quite a few villages, and I'm just wondering which municipality has a public safety officer, and also they either have one or the other. That much I just know, but I don't know of any of those that have both. That was my question.
I've talked to so many mayors and road managers, I think they're really talking about it. Any other questions or comments? Great, some good conversation tonight. So, all right. Move to the addendum, to an agreement by and between the State of Illinois Department of Transportation and Village of Sauk Village resurfacing FAP Route 332 and Route 394 at Sauk Trail to installation of the Sauk Village pre-exemption equipment at the traffic light. We should have a couple things in front of you, I think. So we've been working on with the IDOT, South River Mayor's managers. What this is with the improvements going on at 394 to Sauk Trail. They're putting sidewalks across the street. Across 394, they're putting in not walk lights. They're putting in the safety lights that turn lights red and green when safety equipment is coming, police cars and fire trucks. Those will all be applied there. What it's going to end up costing us is $14,145. Total project is just under $1 million. And it breaks down, again, your emergency vehicle pre-exemption, and some engineering costs. We share 15% of it. The share of the path, against the engineering, fire hydrants to be relocated. So, again, when we looked at this money, this is coming out MFT, and we've got it right there at our TIFs, so we're able to pull some of the money from the TIFs. So it's not going to end up costing anything out of general fund for this work. And what happened is there's an addendum there in front of you, and they just need the village board to go ahead and approve this so they can go ahead and move forward. They want to start work pretty quick. I think it's happening, what, Jeff? You know, the transportation board's happening, what, in the next couple months?
This is supposed to start at either the end of this month or April.
Right. So they were just looking for this last addendum to be signed off on. Anyone have any questions on this one?
So none of this money is coming out of the general fund, it's MFT fund?
No, it's MFT funds and TIF. Yeah, everything was attached to that paper code. You got three things there. You got this. Is that three or two? I'll tell you what. You get the last. Here you go. You get the last page for the cost. Here, you can have one now.
Here you go. You got an extra copy?
No.
All right, you got a full pack.
All right. Again, it's coming out MFT funds and TIF for this, and this is adding the additional lane, the sidewalk, the walk do not walk signs, the emergency vehicle. Yes, that's the village's portion of what, $900,000, 800 or something, $829,725 for the total cost for the project.
This is not that walk path as well.
No.
This is the widening, the preemption, and the moving of the fire hydrant, and then they also are going to be putting a walk path across it, the line and stuff like that, putting that across with the do not walk signs and all that type of thing. That's what.
394 Sauk Trail.
Yes, sir.
And then we're still working on the other intergovernmental project, but it's not before you tonight. That's the walk path going all the way down Sauk Trail up to Cottage Grove, up to Mary Burn. And that's intergovernmental. We're still trying to get that approved through Sauk Village, Stager, County, and State. Any more questions on this one? Can we put this on the consent agenda? All right. If you don't want on a consent agenda, just look at the village clerk, we'll show them it before tonight's meeting. Before Friday. Or we can always remove it Tuesday. All right. Number 7, our cost saving initiatives. Trustees have any updates or the cost savings initiatives? All right, hearing none. In April, I'm waiting on some stuff from the governor's office.
The chief and I met with the people doing the pipeline. They told us it's going to be on the north side of the old EJ track, and as they move through, they're going to be removing that track too. That's going to go all the way down to under the expressway and go underneath the tracks, cut south, and then about middle of the lot, it's going to cut back west, and then it's going to go follow the power lines all the way through. So they will be in the town for quite a while, said. And of course, remove the old EJ railroad track. That's the one from the north. Across from the tracks, it says north sector. There's the old one. This is the Enbridge, the pipeline out.
Any other cost savings? All right, with that, number 8, public comment. All questions or comments will be directed to the mayor. The speaker will be given 3 minutes to comment on topics of their choice. The speaker will be allowed 1 opportunity to speak.
Eric Stewart, Sauk Village. Very interesting conversation. I don't think the advisors, Mr. Mayor, that advised you should have been here with you. This program that you're trying to put together to where you want to bring in a title with no criteria to where, under the understanding that I have, the mayor can appoint somebody to a position that's there. Am I correct on that? You could answer when you get your time. I didn't like that because you didn't. I'm listening to the board say, where's the money? Where's the criteria? And it would relieve some of the stress on you. If you're under stress, step down. Because this is ridiculous. You're going to appoint people over people that are already here. You're going to make it to where you're going to put people in position that aren't there. All you want is something on the books, a title. That's what you're looking for. For what? So you can appoint to where the board doesn't have a say. You can do that from what it was done with Renetta Hill Corley, dummy down version of the village administrator, dummy down position of a village manager, and dummy down a position of an administrator. This is ridiculous. I mean, whoever advised you didn't come here to tell you how to do it. The board ought to listen to them instead of making these appointments. And if you can't handle it, step down. That's a real cost savings initiative. Thank you.
You know, it's always good to hear residents speak. And for some of the residents here, I know we got some new people here tonight. We have our fan base and we have our non-fan base. So, again, I can understand a little bit, maybe not understanding what's coming for us tonight. And this is an ordinance to get on the books. This is not the hiring of anyone. The hiring of anyone would be by the consent and approval of the village board. That means someone would have to present and lead a statement that the mayor could just go ahead and appoint someone. That's not true. The ordinances make it very clear that it's with the consent and approval of the village board. And I can tell you that we've learned from previous administrations, you don't get very far if you become a mayor that just go ahead and starts appointing people. You know, to sit in this position, you have to be able to work with your board. We may not agree on everything, and we have some good conversations up here. But you just don't force something through. That's why we're here tonight with these these ordinances. If you've been coming to the board meetings, you know Trustee Washington has been pushing this for probably about the last year, year and a half. But it wasn't part of a budget. To be able to even consider to add this to a budget, the ordinances need to be in place. And I can understand people want qualifications. I would too. So the thing is, when we look at these ordinances, is getting a position on the book, your qualifications and your salaries and things like that are part of negotiations. And then negotiations, the village board is involved with. Because as we've heard trustees say before, the trustees are the Christians, right? So this board here is the one that would vote an individual into a position once they knew the qualifications and the salary. So again, I just don't want residents sitting here thinking that once we get these on, that a mayor can just go ahead and appoint someone. That's not true. So you have to look at the ordinances. These ordinances are very clear. So, next.
Name's Terry Pratt. I've been here 47 years. I've been through 3 or 4 different elections. And I have never, ever, if you want to harass me, that's fine to me. I don't care. But when you harass my family, then we have a problem. And as far as people calling me a liar and people know me, they don't. Believe me. And if you ain't got the cojones to come up and say I'm a liar to my face, don't say nothing at all.
I can say it.
Next.
Back to that, Peter.
Maybe we can find somebody that can do it, like volunteer, like you have your school board, you have your trustees. I don't know how much you all get paid, but maybe it could be something like that. We can find somebody who is qualified and who's willing, maybe retired, that can say, hey, you know, I want to contribute to my community and donate our time. So maybe you could find something like that, because I think that that is a beautiful idea, a very good idea. And yes, it will help you in the long run, because you have a full-time job and you have a very hard job. And then to raise children on top of that, it's really hard, but you're doing good things for the community, so you need some help with that. So maybe you could find somebody that will be able to do it, but for a very low minimum cost. And please don't step down.
I'm going to go anywhere. We're a long time. Mr. Griffin.
Mayor, I have several questions I'd like to ask you. Why hire when you can't pay? Why hire when you can't pay? You got rid of the village manager. Now you're talking about a village administrator. What is the difference? What can a village administrator accomplish that a village manager couldn't do or can't do? We are having problems already. We can't maintain fire hydrants. We're having trouble concerning the water issue. Streets need to be repaired, need better lighting on the streets. And I just wonder, can you tell me why?
All right, that's all you have? All right, hopefully I got everything. You know, why hire when we can't pay? Again,
You didn't even, you want me to read this over again?
no, I got it. I wrote down. It said, why hire when you can't pay? Okay. Again, looking at getting a position on the books. That's number one. Getting an ordinance passed. Okay, you can't even consider bringing someone on unless you have an ordinance in place. Okay. What can they accomplish? Now, with an administrator, there's so much that can be accomplished with an administrator. Again, talking to other mayors and talking to other village managers and other administrators, You know, and someone said maybe I should have brought the ones in that talked to me. You're right, maybe I should have. Maybe I should have brought the mayors in that I talked to. The mayors from Richmond Park, the mayors from Park Forest, the mayors from Chicago Heights, South Chicago Heights, the mayors from Stager. You know, talking and bring them in here and explain to this board. Maybe I should have brought in Ed Pazzo to sit down here and talk to this board. Maybe that's what I should have done, because they're the ones who I've been talking to. I've been talking to a lot more. You know, the administrators, you know, you look at what can they do, the day-to-day operations, the grants, getting out there getting grants, representing your community, dealing with your residents, going off and making recommendations to this board. You know, and the list goes on and on and on. You know, these are mayors that, you know, I look to surrounding us, and I look to mayors to the north, I look to the west, I look to the mayors. That's why I represent this village, attending all these COGs, so that I can bring stuff back to this board. Just like this board every year goes to an IMO conference, so they can bring stuff back to this community. And you talk about our lights, our street lights. You know, one of the things that we did with our street lights, what did we do? We took the President's Challenge with a cost savings to have all our street lights repaired, and they're going to start repairing all our lights and putting in new energy efficient lights. You know, you talk about our streets. You look at the amount of streets we repaired in the last 3 years and what we're looking at doing this year. You know, we're looking at approximately $400,000 worth of streets that we're going to repair this year. You know, and the water, we're constantly working on repairing and repairing our water. We're constantly working on, and Kevin's already left, and I was going to ask him, I forgot, you know, to get our fire hydrants replaced. The numbers of fire hydrants that were broken when we came in office has shrunk. And it continues to shrink, because what we do is we're replacing them and we're repairing these fire hydrants. So, again, when you're looking at, you know, a lot of people are asking the questions, okay? You know, maybe I need to get some of these mayors in, and I'll reach out to them and ask them to start contacting these trustees so that they can have an understanding of what a administrator does and why it's so important to your community. You know, we've done pretty good the last 2 years. You know, but can we do better? Yes. And this is part of being better. But before we can get better, an ordinance has to be passed to get it on the books. And then the board, I mean, there's multiple steps. First of all, an ordinance. Then a board has to approve, and part of that approving is getting negotiating a contract and things like that. So this is a first step. So, all right. Okay. Next.
Well, that's not answering it completely, like,
Okay.
but we'll talk about it.
All right.
We're not finished with it.
All right, sir.
This is Frank Hodges, 2946, 23. Please. I just want to ask one question. Now do you see what Left Harbor was trying to say when he wanted to get the village manager? You see the problem now. You need a village manager. You do need one.
I think when you, again, it's working with the board. I'm trying to work with the board. We'll continue to work with the board. So there's a little bit of difference there on that one. That's not comparing apples to apples. Good.
Judy Cast, South Village. I don't understand when you have people that you have laid off that we need, where you can consider bringing people on that will require more money to pay them than it would cost to bring your layoff people back. Secondly, you had this idea from talking to different mayors and managers or whoever you talk to about these two positions. You have to understand, and I know you do, what Sauk Village went through. You were sitting there as trustee when we went through towers. These things did not come up unless they were intended to get rid of somebody. We had the safety person in there to take over when Tim was pushed out. And now we're getting a safety person again? It's opening a door that we don't want open. We don't have money. I don't care how good they're going to do. We are paying a legislator or a lobbyist, a lobbyist to do things for us. All these brilliant things he was going to do and bring to Sauk Village. We haven't seen any of it. And we owe the man money. Putting this as you want it, puts it in place, and when you feel like it and you want to bring this public safety person in or this administrator or whoever, then it's your right to do so. Which I agree, that is your right.
That's right.
But at this point, we're not in a position, you're telling us to tighten our belts. We need every person here tonight sitting in the front row was amazing. They've been here for so long and they're like part of a family. And yet, not only the people walking the streets, but your own department heads can see the handwriting on the wall by these two ordinances. And that ordinance is going to open a door. That's a bad door to open.
Well, all I can say is, you know, there's a lot of people out there talking using scare tactics, and it sounds like you've been listening to them. There's nowhere in there to push any department heads out. You talk about 10 was pushed out, there was a safety resource officer there. You were wrong there also, I'm sorry. But the safety resource officer was not put in place until Robert Fox was let go. So Tim was never in that position. So I think what you need to make sure that, you know, I tell everyone, remember it's election year. People say stuff just to scare people. Again, tonight I presented to put something on the books, an ordinance to pass. Nowhere is there tonight that we're talking about an individual. Nowhere tonight do we talk about salaries. Again, we're working on a budget. This is the time of year that you present these positions so that you know how to budget for these positions. No one's saying that people who've been laid off are eligible for these positions. You talk about we're getting ready to put positions on the books, then you got people laid off. I think what we need to consider is, first of all, getting these passed and getting them on the books, and again, looking at these positions and the importance of these positions and how they affect Sauk Village.
Stephen Shemkus, a 45-year resident. Human Relations Commission is still looking for a person to fill the vacancy that we have on the commission. Please submit your letters of interest to the mayor. And our next meeting is April 6th at 7 p.m. here in the municipal center. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Steve, because I have received no letters as of yet. None.
I want to say thanks, Jeff, for bringing this new company into the building. It would be nice if we can get it. That itself will pay for whatever we're trying to do here. That by itself. So we buckle up and do that. The next thing is this. I believe, Mr. Mayor, that you're going in the right direction. Right now, we might not can see it, but if you got plans for this to go through, I believe that you can do what you say you're going to do. So my question is to me and everybody else, why don't we wait and see and then say this is wrong? That's what I say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Maria Kelly. I'm a 52-year resident here. I've been to quite a few mayors. My question is you're bringing in a village manager and a safety director. Are these two both full-time jobs? And why would not the village manager alone go after all the funding that the fire and the police do need? Wouldn't that be part of the qualifications? Why would you need a safety director also? And the ordinance that are brought up, were they prepared by an attorney, and did it cost you to have these ordinances prepared?
Can I get your name? I'm sorry.
P.L.A.N. Maria. M-A-R-I-A, P-I-E-L-L-I.
You bring up some good points, but again, tonight we're not.
We're just putting out an ordinance, is what you're saying. But
okay.
did you?
I know this is probably when the first meeting what happens is you get 3 minutes to comment, and we'll respond. But there's no debate here, so I mean.
I'm not debating. I'm asking a question.
Right.
Why do you need 2 full-time positions when one full-time position as administrator would do all of this?
I will answer the best of my ability, but your time, if you have any other questions, I'll let you finish your questions, but there will be no debate back and forth on this
I
one.
just, and then it costs to have these ordinances drawn up by an attorney.
Are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, you bring up a good point. You know, again, I'll reiterate or I'll repeat that these are ordinances that go in the book. There's no hiring anyone tonight, number one. So you talk about bringing someone in. There's no one tied to these ordinances tonight. Okay, excuse me. And our ordinances do come through our attorneys. So can't tell you right now how much they cost or anything, but we have village attorneys, we have corporate attorneys that make sure that the ordinances that we present are ordinances that as a community, which we are non-home rule, are something that we can pass. So we depend and we look to our attorneys to make sure that what we're presenting is something that can be passed. So.
Thank you, Rose Langston. I just want to say that I understand the ordinances does not mean we hire today. It means if we have the money, then you could go forward. I did understand that even when you mentioned public safety, that's in the future. It's not even tomorrow or next year. Your question on the village manager ordinance, I keep hearing that they want information on qualification. I can see just a little bit of basic qualification, but when you are seeking for a village manager or administrator, you have to be very specific on your requirements and qualification. And hopefully you bring in something that they have some sort of municipality or state official act so they know how to handle a government or even county. One of the biggest things would be background check. When we hired our last village manager, I believe they neglected to do that because there was a lot of baggage the previous village manager had. In fact, if you even notice, there were suits from her former location where she was let go. So that was not just because of cost. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one else, move to miscellaneous business. Comments from the trustees. Start with, who's got the mic here? Start with trustee Burgess. You have the mic there.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one thing. Tomorrow evening here at 7 o'clock, the town hall meeting will be. That's all I have.
Okay. Let's go to trustee Austin. He's passing that down.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that the craft show this last Saturday was a huge success. The Parks and Recs had a raffle, had some bake sales, and a concession stand, and we made over $575. I want to thank all those people who came out to help me, Carol, my wife, Jackie, Susan, all the rest of them, not anybody I forgot, I'm sorry. But it was a great success, and they were a great help, and Parks and Recs owes them a good debt. Also, our next meeting will be April 2nd at Community Center at 7 p.m. And the baseball program sign-ups will continue as Sullivan and my subcommittee continues to try to get the baseball program started. And again, thank you to all those, and thank you to those who showed up yesterday. To help me with the Easter egg. So we were working on that yesterday, so I want to say thank you to those people too, that was the plan, and other members of my Parks and Recs. Thank you very much.
Rosie, trustee Whitman, sorry.
That's okay, you can call me Rosie.
Just don't call your name yourself, all right?
Depends on what it is. If it's Corby McCabbage, you don't have to call me at all. Student government day reports are due the 27th. Just to remember that, 27th. Submit electronically, not handwritten on a piece of paper. Email them to me, please. Department heads and elected officials. March 27th, that's a Friday. So talks are on the back table, and there's a flyer on the back table about manufacturing skills job training program. It will be Tuesday, March 26th at 10 a.m. here, the Sauk Village. There's more information back there. Talks about well-paying jobs and benefits, the prices that they're looking to pay. So if you want more information, there's flyers on the back table.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. Trustee Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to announce that we'll be having our watch meeting the second Monday in April, as usual, at the fire station at 6:30. And I also want to have a comment in regard to the village manager that we talked about. And that was in different cases at IML, and we were talking, and different people around the room talking about having a village manager. And I did speak.
He wants to say goodbye to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
But during the IML conferences downtown, when we were in the different meetings and in the different groups, and when I brought up at the village managers meeting that we didn't have one in Sauk Village, and they said, well, why don't you all have a village manager? I said, we can't afford one. They all kind of started chuckling and laughing. They're like, you can't afford not to have one. That's what the village managers do. That's a part of their job. They go after grants, economic development. They find money for the village. So with that being said, I just, at that end of this, only going on the ordinance tonight to be put back in as a position that we have in the village. And people talk about the salary and where we're going to get the money from. Where did we get the money from to pay for that grass cutting? How much was that we borrowed, that we put back? Was it 700?
200,000. We put it back.
Right, I'm saying, so we borrow money from water, we put it back. If we had a village manager or a village administrator, if we had somebody part-time or a retired person from South Suburban Affairs and Management, from the pool of village managers that they have that's retired, what would we have if we had to borrow their salary? And he brought up the first grant and put it back. There's all kinds of ways we can put it back. I just think that if the board come together and really put our heads together, and like you say, pull the money from the different tips of different places, we should be able to pay for it without a problem. I do understand about getting the credentials and the criteria, but I understand you to want to discuss all of that tonight, just getting the position put back in the ordinance. And that concludes my report and statement.
Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Myers.
You want me to go over what I did earlier? Why not? Nah. I'm not opposed to the village administrator. I think it's a great idea. I think we should have had one a long time ago, but we didn't have the payment funds. Maybe if we find the money, fine, then. That's it. That's all I have to do.
Thank you, Trustee. All righty. A few things I just want to make sure I cover. First of all, before I forget, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. And if you're sitting next to someone who's not wearing green, makes you a pinch on. Yeah. I was just joking. All right. Alrighty, tonight we had some great debate, and again, I'm thankful for the trustees we have sitting here, because, what they do is they make you think a little bit more. So they've asked for some more information, we'll get that information for them. But again, this is what it's about. When we're sitting down here, it's about, working things out and coming up, and, one person can't do everything. That's why you've got 6 other trustees sitting around this table, so great job tonight to the board. April 29th, the village clerk has informed the trustees about Lobby Day down in Springfield. I need to know this week if you're going down to Lobby Day. That's an important day. It's going down to Springfield on April 29th. Okay, so you make sure you let me know.
Third Wednesday.
And then I'm going to pass out right here. This last week I was in Chicago. I had a great day in Chicago. I went to the Mayor's Caucus. Pass it out. At the Mayor's Caucus, the governor came and addressed the mayors. Then, through South Suburban Mayors and Managers, about 15 of us mayors went back to the State Building, to Thompson Center, and we got to sit down and have a personal talk with the governor. And we had a good time together. Again, the governor is learning a lot of stuff. I think he has, I'm not going to say he's had some bad advice when it comes to especially communities in the south suburbs, and the challenges that we face. The governor's talking about taking our local government LGDF funds away from us, but he wants to give more money to the schools. Here we are in the south suburbs. And our schools are pretty good, and they got a $16 million surplus, and we're sitting here with a deficit. Some of the things you understand, but we got to talk to him. Before I left, I got to give him my business card. I got to shake his hand, and I had about probably 2.5 to 3 minutes to explain to him about Sauk Village, and informed him, before he was governor, back in 2009, Sauk Village had to turn one of its wells off. They had vinyl chloride in our water. I went through everything as quickly as possible and asked him to please reconsider and release the funds that were provided from the previous governor to pay for our water. I explained to him that starting in August, we have to start paying the loan back to the IEPA if he does not release those funds. I can tell you that what the governor must have took it to heart, because we've got some good news today, that the governor is looking into our case. So that is good. That's good news. What I'm passing out is the governor passed out. He asked us to go back and give it to our boards, and I said, no problem, I won't do it. The governor's looking for ways not to take our LGDF funds away from us. And if you want to, it's up to you. But he said that if as elected officials, we make sure we get his agenda out, which you have, to the residents, and if he can get it to pass in Springfield, he would not have to take those funds away from municipalities. Okay? But we still find ourselves sitting in a difficult situation. We have to take what the governor says very seriously. So as we plan for this next year's budget, we're planning as if we are not going to get the funds that we should normally get. Again, looking at positions tonight on the books, to put back on the books, there's reasons for that. There's reasons for putting positions on to go off and go back after some grants, go back and reach out. The lobbyist brought up, okay? If we had that administrative position, we would not need that lobbyist. So people start asking, where is money coming from? As we start to look into this, as we put this budget together and we put the finished touches on it, we have to understand, do we need to continue having someone represent us in Springfield, or do we use that money to have someone represent us here and in Springfield and oversee the day-to-day operations and work with our residents? That's $36,000 a year we put towards that position. So again, and that's only gives you a little example when you're putting a budget together. Will that position be available this next year when it comes to budget? So, and we'll continue working with the governor's office. On the 29th is lobby day. We're trying to get as many elected officials down in Springfield. That's important, number one. There's going to be plenty of stuff for elected officials to do. Now, my day is already planned. As a mayor, I'm going from meeting to meeting. We have another meeting scheduled with the governor on the 29th, the mayor's do. But as elected officials, you can get down there and meet with your state representatives and meet with your senators and get in their face and tell them you need your money released. I just posted something on my Facebook from one of our state representatives, Marcus Evans. He was sitting holding a piece of cardboard or something saying, Governor, release our funds now. What was he talking about? He was talking about those Auslan grants that we were one of the communities that received them. The governor has currently just kind of like froze everything. There's some monies out there that we need. Those are for our kids, those are for our parks. That's $205,000 was one of those funds that was held up when you saw Marcus Evans holding that sign, Governor, release our funds now. And he did it at a ballpark. So if you saw those pictures, I think he was in the city of Chicago, but that affects a lot of communities. You think about what we went through to get that money. We had to put together a plan. We had to present that plan. And we came down to just a few municipalities left. I went down to Springfield to give a 3-minute a little spiel before the IDNR to keep Sauk Village on that list. So there was a lot of work involved in going out and getting that money. That money just wasn't handed to us because we might have supported someone in an election. We worked for that money, and our kids deserve that money. So we can get these parks and stuff repaired for them. So continue to write your state representatives. It's important. Let them know that you're a Sauk Village resident, and you're asking them to request the governor to release the funds to Sauk Village that we have coming to us. That's what you need to do. As a mayor, I will continue working with the governor, but at the same time, I work for you. And I will try to do my best to continue pushing the message. Governor, please release those funds. Those funds won't touch my hands. They won't touch this board's hands, especially that money for that water. That pays off a low-interest loan, a debt, that we incurred because of the IEPA Attorney General making us move forward to putting permanent air strippers in our community. So we could have safe drinking water. We could meet the two requirements, quality and quantity. So the work, you know, I'm happy to say the work is supposed to be done by the end of May, long as no setbacks. But by the end of May, all three of our wells will be up and running. All three of them. First time since 2009. And we're getting water out. The water coming out in your tap doesn't have any vinyl chloride in it at all. Because those air strippers are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. We're having all brand new iron removal systems and frag tanks and everything else you can think of on these locations. So a lot of work going on. I'd like to thank Debbie. I think you were involved in that training program that we're having here on the 26th. So I'd like to thank the village clerk. She reached out, and if you know anyone that wants to come in for that training, make sure you get some of those flyers back there. That's very important. Village clerk's been putting information out about voting. And just real quick, voting information. March 23rd, first day for early voting. March 2nd, last day for mail ballot applications to be accepted, including military and overseas voters. April 4th, last day of early voting. April 4th is the last day of grace period registration and voting. April 6th is the last mail ballots can be postmarked. And April 7th is election day. So, okay, so you got that on the back table? Okay, great. So I appreciate it. And then, the fire chief was here. He wants to make sure that it's mentioned that Sauk Village firefighters is having their breakfast with the Easter Bunny. That's on March 29th at the fire station from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So don't forget that. And I know there's requests. And again, I'm usually, to be honest with you, I'm pretty easy going with my department heads, with your department heads. I think I have a fairly good working relationship with most of them. And if they need something, they come to me. If I need something from them, I go to them. But I understand that the trustee, when he brought up tonight about making sure that we have department head meetings, maybe getting all in one room. So, you know, lots coming in at night though, the board now. But we'll start scheduling department head meetings and getting it going back. Again, I think what we have currently is working pretty well. But if I need to get them all in one room, you know, I'll schedule it. So, but I'm shooting, and I'm only telling you that because I'm sure you're going to hear about it. Because they'll come in when I'm here. All right? No, he only gave it to us. Yeah, he only gave it to us in a packet. So, all right. Well, that's it. Oh, let me do real quick. There's one other thing, and I think that's Sunday, right? Sunday, Muscacholi dinner at the community center. Cost tickets are $5 per plate. Go for a good cause. It's from 2 o'clock to 6 p.m. at the community center, and it's for, I can remember, what's her name? Tabitha and Rebecca. So, Muscacholi sure sounds good. Sounds good right now because I haven't ate since lunch. So, you're looking for something to do Sunday afternoon, all the way to Sunday evening, almost 6 o'clock p.m. Right behind us at the community center. Come get some Muscacholi for a good price, $5. All right, with that said, that's for a motion to adjourn. A second. Now, motion to second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.